So next we have Jennifer Lahl. Jennifer Lahl is the founder and president of the Center for Bioethics and Culture. She's an award-winning documentary filmmaker as well. She spent 25 years in pediatric nursing and senior level hospital management before she founded the Center for Bioethics and Culture. In 2021, Jennifer released her film Transmission, What's the Rush to Reassign Gender?, which is a deep dive into the medical ethics debate of allowing children to medically transition. And in 2022, she released her 10th film, 10th film, The Detransition Diaries, Saving Our Sisters, a film which explores the decisions of 3 young women to transition and the reasons for their decision to detransition. Her forthcoming book, The Detransition Diaries, Saving Our Sisters, expands on the stories of these women, these female detransitioners, including a history of the gender affirmation movement, a historical look at times when medicine abandoned their do no harm mandate, and a glimpse into a way back to protecting young people from gender ideology. Through her writing, speaking, and filmmaking, she has a deep passion to speak for the marginalized who often have no voice. Thank you, Jennifer.
I feel privileged to have a podium. Anyway, I bring you greetings from California, the great sanctuary state that has open arms for transgender youth to come and get free gender affirmation therapies and surgeries. Just kidding, not about the California part. So my task is sort of to give you a sort of snapshot of what happened to medicine. How did we go so terribly wrong? When I left pediatric nursing, the last place I worked was Children's Hospital in Oakland, California. I was there for 10 years. And you know what? We weren't doing this, there some 20 years ago. So it's amazing. So I'm going to give a little bit of historical perspective, where we were, how we got here, where we're going, what's coming, and hopefully intersperse in my remarks a little bit of hope and some cracks that I see that give me hope, and maybe they'll give you hope as well. When I was so my film that's showing tomorrow night is the Detransition Diaries, and that's coming out in book format in fall of this year. So obviously when you make a movie or you write a book, they're just 2 very different projects, even though they're on the same subject matter. So I had to do a lot more research in writing a book. And I actually learned some things that I didn't know. Maybe it'll be new to you too. But I didn't realize that before the days of Hitler and Nazi Germany, the German medical physicians were the experts and exemplar examples of medical ethics. And I thought, wow, I didn't know that. I also learned, I knew that we had the Nuremberg trials, and then out of the Nuremberg trials came the Nuremberg Code of Ethics for how medicine treats human beings as subjects and research and whatnot. But I didn't realize it was the Germans that gave us informed consent, which is a huge tenet in today's should-be medical practice. During Hitler's time, though, it was reported that doctors in Germany really lost prestigious status. They lost their social status. Everybody kind of hitched their wagon on the Nazi regime and Hitler's efforts. And so in order to become popular, the doctors thought, we're going to join Hitler. So many doctors during that period of time were unemployed or underemployed because they weren't popular. It was Hitler's, ilk that were the popular people. So to gain social credit, which is sort of what we see in medicine today. If you're a doctor who hasn't embraced the American Academy of Pediatrics, affirmation only guidelines, or you're an endocrinologist who doesn't abide by the endocrine society's, gender affirmation only policy, you're kind of on the outs. I mean, I know physicians who are, very much experts in their field, and they are canceled from events. Dr. Quentin Van Meter, who was in my Transmission film, was set to give grand rounds. And when they found out that he didn't affirm gender affirmation, therapy, he was canceled. Because he wasn't on the right team. The National Socialist German Physicians League was formed in 1929. It unified the goals of the physician and the state. Do we see that today? The state is now telling doctors, the doctors are in cahoots with the state on how they can practice medicine. They took it upon themselves at that time to remove Jewish doctors from the medical profession societies in Germany. Jewish physicians could no longer practice medicine in hospitals or universities during this period of time. And by 1942, 38,000 physicians had joined the ranks as members of the Nazi Party. Again, another similarity that we see today with people, especially in medicine, losing their status and within their professional societies and being, having their practice put in jeopardy, not being able to get privileges at hospitals or not being able to get, insurance companies to enter into contracts with you. So medicine has moved again from the Hippocratic roots. I could go on with many other examples, the Tuskegee studies we did on men and syphilis, the lobotomy studies we did. I live in California again, which was the, biggest abuser of involuntary sterilization. We had the most people sterilized in the state of California. I think the last woman sterilized in California was a woman in prison. Maybe Candace, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the 1980s. So that wasn't too long ago. So as a nurse, again, I left clinical nursing some time ago, but things have changed really pretty fast. Many people have heard me say, I talk about when I was a brand new nurse, I had patients. When I left nursing, we had customers and clients. We used to have physicians, now we have healthcare providers, service providers. I saw the pendulum swing where, patients would present in the emergency room and they'd done the Google search and they tell the doctor what they want. I need a CAT scan. I think I broke my leg. I need Vicodin because I have back pain. They've done all their research and the doctors, overwhelmingly today to just comply and see themselves. I would ask new interns when they would come in as part of their rotation through their medical training, what do you see your role as? And they wouldn't say it in such clear words, but basically they saw themselves as service providers. I'm here to give my patients what they want. So no longer does doctor knows best. It's now the patients know best. And why medicine did that? I don't know. We could probably spend a whole nother, talk on why that happened. Some key things I saw in the last years, decade-ish, shifting medical-wise. We know that in 2007, we saw the first opening of the gender clinic in Boston Children's Hospital. Around the same time, you saw the professional societies changing their guidelines, their standards of care. The Endocrine Society, of course, changed their standards of care for how to only provide gender affirmation. Same with American Academy of Pediatrics. They now recommend what this says on their website, a non-judgmental gender affirming approach to care. Should say something like a horrific, heinous, vile thing to do to children. We've seen iterations again and again and again of WPATH. They just, and they, with each new iteration, it doesn't get better. It's not based and grounded in science and evidence. It's not really even based and grounded in what we're seeing in the voices and the stories of the detransitioners. So, part of me says pressure needs to be put back on these bodies. We need to keep exposing the lies. I mean, how many times, you hear, do you want a dead daughter or a live son? If you don't affirm, they're going to kill themselves. I mean, I think, we just need to keep exposing those lies and pushing back. One of the reasons we made transmission, what's the rush to reassign gender, was to give parents the confidence to push back on the doctor who's pushing gender affirmation only. So parents could say, no, doctor, I don't really think my child will kill themselves if we don't do this. And in fact, the studies and the evidence doesn't bear that out. Noteworthy shifts just recently. Some of these I think are very positive and hopeful. One of the things is, I really believe this is a culture war that we will win in our lifetime. Unlike other culture wars that we've just been fighting and fighting and fighting, I think we will witness a victory in this space. Why? One, I always say people are not tribal. This is a new phenomenon. When you try to talk about, I don't want to be polemic here, but the abortion debate, people are tribal. You know, they have thought long and hard, and they're either pro-choice or they're pro-life. And you could talk to you're blue in the face and present all kinds of anecdotes or evidence or whatever. People are tribal. They're not tribal here. You know, man on the street, they don't know this is happening. They don't know that it's happening at the magnitude and level that it's happening. They don't even know. If you stop and said, what's a desister or what's a detransitioner, they kind of go, is it something you put in your car? Is it something in a radiator? You know, they don't know what these words even mean. And so to get them to stop and look, average people will go, hell no, we're not going to do this. Not on my watch, not in my neighborhood, not in my with my children. Noteworthy shifts. How many states now are passing good pieces of legislation? Lots. And I can't even keep up. It's like almost every day, you know, there's a new law introduced, a new law passed, a new law is on a governor's desk, you know, new law has been signed in. Yes, there's crazy states like California, and I think Colorado just became another trans sanctuary. But yes, but overwhelmingly, legislatively, we're winning on the legislative side. We've had our first major whistleblower, right? How many whistleblowers were blowing, you know, the noise, the horn about Tavistock in the United Kingdom? You know, that is huge that we had a whistleblower. And, you know, it was even a little sweeter that the whistleblower was somebody who was pro-trans and it is in a relationship with a trans person. And so it wasn't some right-wing religious, you know, whistleblower. It was somebody that people had to stop and say, okay, we need to listen to this person. They're a valid whistleblower. We've had lawsuits. Chloe's gone now, but we have 2 lawsuits. You know, before it was just outside the United States where we were seeing lawsuits and the challenge in the legal area. So that's really, really good. I love what Florida did. That's a hopeful thing. Lior Sapir, if you don't follow Lior Sapir or know of his work, he's somebody really to listen to. But I like what happened legislatively in Florida, where the stopping of transing of children didn't happen at the legislative level. It happened at the medical society level, where the medical profession, the professional bodies said, we're not doing this. As doctors, which is good because on one hand, you can pass a law, but then, you know, new legislators come into office, the new governor comes into office, and they can undo the law. But when you have the medical professionals dictating how medicine is going to be practiced at the state level, that's a more powerful statement, and I think has more lasting effect, because the doctors are saying, no, we're not going to do that. Another noteworthy is the passing of a new bill here in Texas. And I have an HB 3502, where they're trying to say that insurance providers have to provide for detransition care, right? So where insurance now is providing for transition care, Texas wants to mandate that now, if a young lady has had or a young man has had, you know, surgeries or medical drugs, cross-sex hormones, then now insurance has to provide for their care. And not only their medical care, but their psychological care, because that's a big component too in providing for and taking care of the detransitioners. I'm going to move to where I see something troubling happening, and that's in the area of part of gender affirmation therapy is offering what's called fertility preservation. So where a lot of again, breaking the narrative, you know, they like to say, well, we're not sterilizing kids. Well, if you're not sterilizing them, why do you have to offer them fertility preservation? Because the only reason you need to preserve their fertility is because you're destroying their fertility. So now part of gender affirmation care is to offer fertility preservation. What that means, if you're a young child who has not gone through puberty yet, so before you go through puberty and before they block your puberty, they will take ovarian and testicular tissue and freeze it. Because you're too immature. A young girl does not have eggs yet, mature eggs, and a young boy does not yet have mature sperm to freeze. So they will take the tissue in hopes that if and when that child is later a young adult and decides that they want to have children, they can go back and get that tissue. Or if the child has already gone through puberty and is going to be put on cross-sex hormones, then they will freeze and bank egg or sperm. So then that child, as they grow up, if they decide that they want to have children, would be able to go back to the fertility, clinic and use their, their own sperm or their own eggs. Now, I have played this part of my talk over in my head 15 different ways, and it's so confusing. And I keep thinking, how can I explain to them? Because what if you're a young girl, right? And you freeze your eggs, then you go on massive testosterone, you have a hysterectomy, you have a double mastectomy because you want to live surgically, medically as close to being a male. And then you grow up and you go, okay, I'm a man, I have no uterus, I have no breasts, but I have eggs. What do I need? I mean, and you could play that out also if you're a little boy and you freeze and bank your sperm, and then you have a phalloplasty, help me out. Thank you. Vaginoplasty, and and then you have to go, okay, now what do I need so then I can go have a baby? And you don't know who these people are going to be partnered with. On one hand, if you've had a hysterectomy, but you're partnered with a woman who has a uterus, well, you don't need a surrogate. But if you're partnered with somebody who doesn't have a uterus, a woman who's lost hers or a man who never had one, then you need a surrogate. So it's just batshit crazy. It's absolutely batshit crazy. And the thing is the only evidence we have of this ever working is like this. And the only time we do this in pediatric cancer patients. So if you're a cancer patient and we know that the chemotherapy and the radiation may sterilize you or render you infertile or compromise your fertility, that patient population is offered fertility preservation. But we have no evidence it works. We have no evidence that these children have now grown up and tried to do that. So we're doing all this experimental stuff on transgender, in the name of transgender affirmation therapy. We're making patients for life, right? We always say we make a patient for life, then we sterilize them. And if they want to have children as they grow up, we make another patient for life because now they have to access the fertility medical professional medicine in order to try to conceive. So it's this a racket, and it gets me pretty upset. But that's just sort of the state of where it is. So I'm going to just end with, I think this is winnable. Because I think if we have these kind of conversations, we just explain to people what is happening to these children, young adults, adolescents, that people will say, not on my watch. Thank you.